In a small, desolate town nestled in the misty valleys of northern England, there stood an ancient manor, abandoned and decaying, known only as Blackwood Manor. The townspeople whispered tales of its cursed history, speaking of a malevolent spirit that roamed its halls, Bloody Mary. The air was thick with the scent of decay as Elena and Tom approached Blackwood Manor. The once grand estate was now a skeletal structure, its windows shattered, and its walls covered in creeping ivy. The moonlight cast eerie shadows across the courtyard, where ancient statues seemed to watch their every move. Inside, the manor was a labyrinth of dusty corridors and crumbling rooms. The floorboards creaked under their feet, and the walls were adorned with faded portraits of the Blackwood family, their eyes seeming to follow Elena and Tom as they explored. An oppressive silence enveloped the manor, broken only by the occasional rustle of vermin scurrying through the darkness. In the heart of the manor, Elena found a hidden door, concealed behind a tattered tapestry. With a sense of dread and excitement, she pushed it open, revealing a narrow staircase descending into the bowels of the house. Tom hesitated, but Elena's determination was unwavering. At the bottom of the staircase, they discovered a secret chamber. The air was colder here, and a strange, metallic scent lingered. The room was filled with dusty tomes, ancient relics, and an altar stained with dried blood. On the wall, scrawled in a dark, ominous script, were the words, "She waits in the mirror. Say her name thrice, and she shall appear." Against Tom's pleas, Elena's curiosity got the better of her. She stood before an ornate, cracked mirror, its surface covered in a thin layer of grime. With a deep breath, she whispered, "Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the room grew colder still, and the mirror began to ripple, as if the surface was made of liquid. Elena and Tom watched in horror as a figure emerged, a gaunt, blood-soaked woman with hollow eyes and a twisted, malevolent grin. Bloody Mary. Suddenly, the lights flickered, casting grotesque shadows on the walls. Bloody Mary lunged at Elena, her fingers like claws, but Tom pulled her away just in time. They fled the chamber, hearing the ghostly laughter of Bloody Mary echoing through the halls. As they navigated the labyrinthine corridors, the spirit pursued them, her presence growing stronger with each passing moment. Mirrors along their path shattered spontaneously, each one revealing glimpses of her horrific visage. Finally, they burst through the front doors of the manor, gasping for breath. But the horror was far from over. Outside, the fog had thickened, and the once familiar surroundings now seemed alien and menacing. The townspeople's whispers filled the air, warning of a curse that bound Bloody Mary to the land. Elena and Tom raced back to town, desperate to find a way to end the curse. They sought out the oldest resident, an elderly woman named Agnes, who had once served the Blackwood family. Her eyes widened in terror as they recounted their encounter. "Henry Blackwood summoned her," Agnes said, her voice trembling. "He sought power beyond imagination, but he unleashed a darkness he couldn't control. The only way to break the curse is to find his journal, hidden somewhere within the manor, and perform the counter-ritual." With no other choice, Elena and Tom prepared to return to Blackwood Manor. Armed with knowledge and a newfound determination, they ventured back into the heart of darkness. The manor loomed before them, even more foreboding than before. The air was thick with anticipation as they stepped inside, the door slamming shut behind them with a resounding finality. The spirit of Bloody Mary was waiting, her laughter echoing through the halls, promising pain and torment. As they delved deeper into the manor, the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. They could feel Bloody Mary's presence, always just out of sight, always watching. The mirrors continued to shatter around them, each broken piece a reminder of the malevolent spirit's power. In a forgotten library, hidden behind a wall of books, they found Henry Blackwood's journal. Its pages were filled with dark incantations and desperate notes. As they deciphered the counter-ritual, a sense of foreboding washed over them. It required a sacrifice, a life to bind the spirit once more. A realization dawned on Elena and Tom. One of them would have to stay behind. The tension between them was palpable as they weighed their options. Bloody Mary's laughter grew louder, more insistent, as if mocking their impending decision. In a moment of heartbreaking resolve, Tom volunteered. He kissed Elena one last time, urging her to complete the ritual and end the curse. Tears streamed down her face as she began the incantation, the air crackling with dark energy. As the final words of the ritual left Elena's lips, a blinding light enveloped the room. Bloody Mary screamed in fury, her form flickering and distorting. Tom's eyes locked with Elena's, a silent farewell passing between them. The light faded, and Bloody Mary was gone. The manor fell silent, the oppressive atmosphere lifting. Elena stood alone in the library, clutching the journal, her heart heavy with grief. But something was wrong. The air felt different, colder. She glanced at the mirrors, now whole and pristine, only to see Tom's reflection staring back at her, his eyes hollow and filled with an unnatural darkness. The curse was not broken. It had only just begun. Elena's heart pounded as she stared at Tom's reflection in the mirror. His eyes, once filled with life, now glimmered with an eerie, vacant darkness. A chill ran down her spine as she realized the horrifying truth. Tom had become part of the curse. Elena reached out, her fingers trembling, and touched the cold surface of the mirror. "Tom," she whispered, her voice breaking. His reflection mimicked her movements, but there was no warmth in his eyes, only a sinister emptiness. Desperate to save him, Elena grabbed Henry Blackwood's journal and flipped through its pages, searching for anything that could undo what had been done. The words blurred together in her frantic state, but she forced herself to focus. There had to be a way. In the back of the journal, scrawled in hasty, almost illegible writing, was a note from Henry Blackwood himself. "The mirror is the key," it read. "Break the mirror, and the curse shall shatter, but beware, the spirit will not go quietly." Elena's resolve hardened. She had to destroy the mirror. She tore through the manor, searching for something, anything, that could break the cursed glass. In a dusty old armory, she found a rusted, but sturdy, iron mace. As she returned to the library, the air grew colder, and a low, sinister whisper filled the room. "You cannot escape me," Bloody Mary's voice echoed. "He is mine." Elena ignored the taunt and raised the mace. With all her strength, she brought it down on the mirror. The glass shattered into countless shards, each reflecting a twisted image of Bloody Mary. A piercing scream filled the air, and the shards exploded outward, cutting into Elena's skin. Bloodied and in pain, Elena looked around, hoping to see Tom free. Instead, she was met with silence and darkness. The manor seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for something. A movement in the corner of her eye caught Elena's attention. She turned to see Tom's reflection stepping out of another mirror, whole and unbroken, his eyes, now completely black, fixed on her with an unnatural intensity. "Elena," he whispered, his voice a haunting echo of the man she loved. "You can't leave. You're part of this now." The realization hit her like a physical blow. Breaking the mirror hadn't freed Tom. It had bound him to the manor, and now she was trapped as well. Bloody Mary's curse was far more insidious than she had imagined. Elena stumbled back, the weight of her situation crushing her spirit. She was trapped in Blackwood Manor, her love lost to the darkness and no way out. The walls seemed to close in on her, the oppressive atmosphere returning with a vengeance. Desperate, she clung to the last shred of hope, Henry Blackwood's journal. There had to be something she had missed, some hidden clue. She flipped through the pages again, her eyes scanning the cryptic text for answers. In the margins of the last page, she found a faint, almost invisible inscription. "The curse is a cycle. To break it, the source must be destroyed." Elena's mind raced. The source? It had to be Bloody Mary herself. But how could she confront and destroy a spirit so powerful? The answer came to her in a flash of inspiration. She needed to use the manor's own dark energy against the spirit. Armed with this newfound knowledge, Elena made her way to the heart of the manor, the altar room where she had first summoned Bloody Mary. The air was thick with malevolent energy, the walls pulsing with a dark rhythm. She placed the journal on the altar and began to chant, drawing on the incantations within its pages. The room grew colder, the shadows deepening, as if the very house was coming alive. Bloody Mary's laughter echoed through the chamber, a sinister symphony that threatened to break Elena's resolve. But she pressed on, her voice growing stronger with each word. The air crackled with energy, and a blinding light enveloped the room. Bloody Mary materialized before her, more terrifying than ever, her eyes burning with rage. Elena stood her ground, channeling the manor's dark energy through the incantation. Bloody Mary screamed, her form distorting as she tried to resist. The light intensified, and the ground shook as the very fabric of the curse began to unravel. With a final, deafening scream, Bloody Mary exploded into a shower of light and darkness. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, and the manor fell silent. Elena collapsed, exhausted and bleeding, but victorious. Elena woke to find herself in the ruins of Blackwood Manor, the morning sun filtering through the shattered windows. She struggled to her feet, her body aching from the ordeal. The curse was broken, but at what cost? She searched the manor for any sign of Tom, but he was gone. The mirrors, now shattered, held no reflections. The oppressive presence had lifted, leaving behind an eerie calm. As she stepped outside, the townspeople gathered, their faces a mix of fear and curiosity. They had heard the commotion and come to investigate. Elena, covered in blood and dirt, stood before them, a living testament to the horrors she had faced. Elena left the town soon after, unable to shake the feeling of unease. The curse was broken, but the memories haunted her. She moved to a new city, trying to rebuild her life, but the shadows of Blackwood Manor followed her. Every mirror she passed seemed to flicker with dark reflections, and at night, she heard Bloody Mary's laughter echoing in her dreams. The curse had ended, but its mark remained, and in the quiet moments, when she looked into the mirror, she swore she could see Tom's eyes staring back at her, a reminder of the darkness that still lurked just beyond the glass. The end was not an end. The horror, the curse, lingered, waiting for the next soul brave, or foolish, enough to call her name. Years passed, but the horrors of Blackwood Manor never truly left Elena. She lived in a small apartment, the walls lined with books and artifacts that served as a barrier against the supernatural. Her journalism career had taken a back seat as she dedicated her life to studying the occult, determined to ensure that no one else would suffer the same fate. One evening, as the autumn winds howled outside her window, Elena heard a knock on her door. She opened it to find a young woman, eyes wide with fear and desperation. "I'm Sophie," the woman said, her voice trembling. "I read your articles about Blackwood Manor. I think Bloody Mary is after me." Elena's heart sank. She had hoped the curse was over, but it seemed the darkness had found a new target. Inviting Sophie inside, Elena listened to her story. The young woman had foolishly performed the ritual at a slumber party, and now she was haunted by the malevolent spirit. Determined to help, Elena knew they had to return to Blackwood Manor one last time. The source of the curse might have been destroyed, but its remnants still lingered. If they could cleanse the manor completely, perhaps they could finally put an end to Bloody Mary's terror. Armed with ancient texts and protective charms, Elena and Sophie made their way back to the desolate town. The manor stood as foreboding as ever, a monument to the darkness within. Inside, the air was thick with an oppressive energy. Elena led Sophie to the altar room, where they set up a circle of protection. As they began the ritual, the temperature plummeted, and Bloody Mary's laughter echoed through the halls. The spirit appeared, her form more twisted and monstrous than before. She lunged at Sophie, but was repelled by the protective circle. Elena chanted the incantation, her voice steady despite the terror that gripped her heart. Bloody Mary screamed, a sound of pure rage and pain. The walls of the manor shook, and the mirrors shattered one by one. The ground beneath them cracked, revealing a dark abyss that seemed to swallow the light. With a final, desperate effort, Elena completed the ritual. A blinding light filled the room, and Bloody Mary was pulled into the abyss, her screams fading into the distance. The ground sealed itself, and the manor fell silent. Exhausted but relieved, Elena and Sophie emerged from the manor. The oppressive atmosphere was gone, replaced by an eerie calm. The townspeople, who had gathered outside, watched in awe as the two women emerged victorious. Elena knew the curse was finally broken. She could feel it in the air, a sense of peace that had been absent for so long. She hugged Sophie, grateful that they had both survived. Years later, Elena published a book detailing her experiences with the supernatural, warning others of the dangers that lurked in the shadows. Sophie, inspired by her bravery, became a paranormal investigator, dedicating her life to helping those haunted by malevolent spirits. Elena never forgot Tom. His sacrifice had not been in vain, and his memory lived on in her heart. She visited his grave often, leaving flowers and whispering words of love and gratitude. As she stood before his tombstone one last time, she felt a gentle breeze brush her cheek, as if Tom was there, watching over her. She smiled, knowing that he was finally at peace. And though the horrors of Blackwood Manor were over, Elena knew that the world was full of darkness and light, forever intertwined. She had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, a beacon of hope for those who needed it most. The legend of Bloody Mary had ended, but Elena's story was just beginning, a tale of courage, resilience, and the unbreakable spirit of those who dared to confront the shadows.